Welcome to the MEAC Countdown to Kickoff, presented by Coca-Cola.
Welcome back, good people. Good morning to you all out there. MEAC Countdown to Kickoff is back, of course, each and every week, powered by Coca-Cola. It's Mitch Brown alongside the Jasmine McCoy, and can't believe it, but I guess I will because time moves just like that when you're having fun. Next week is it here on Countdown to Kickoff inside the Digital Network studio, but we'll also be crowning someone MEAC champions at the end of next Saturday's games. But let's not look too far ahead just yet.
Let's not, because it's been a quick little month for us here inside the MEAC studios, but we're racing towards Atlanta and the Celebration Bowl. But you know who else is racing towards us?
Who?
You hear that? Them Bulldogs, South Carolina State. They're just doing their thing. And last week, we're going to just wait to take a look at the action from last week. We can't look ahead because there's so much on today's slate.
You're right.
And well, of course, we'll bring in Emory Hunt to recap last night's Howard and North Carolina Central showdown in my backyard, the Bull City, Durham, North Carolina.
Absolutely. Friday night, 8 p.m. kick for that one. Stick around after this timeout. You're watching MEAC Countdown to Kickoff on the MEAC Digital Network and ESPN+.
Welcome back into MEAC Countdown to Kickoff, presented by Coca-Cola. It's Jasmine McCoy alongside Mitch Brown. Let's take a look at last week's games. Just a doubleheader with Norfolk State and North Carolina Central on bye weeks. Morgan State beats Delaware State 36-28. South Carolina State crushes Howard 38-14 to stay undefeated in MEAC play.
Yeah, Jazz, Morgan State beat Delaware State in that game that found both of these squads trading touchdowns for a bit. First half, Hornets down 14-7. C.J. Henry finds Jaden Sutton for a 55-yard connection that goes the distance to the crib. That tied the game up at 14 apiece. Now, this was a 21-21 ball game at halftime. Later in the third quarter, it's Sutton again, 65 yards, back to the crib.
The crib.
Yeah, like a Chris Brown song. One play drive to give the Hornets the lead, 28-27. In the final minutes, though, Andre Crawley gets to the end zone from 16 yards, out scratching and clawing. That's how he does. That was enough to ice the game for Morgan State, who improves to 5-5 and 2-1 in MEAC play.
I mean, anytime you get a win, it's good. But we didn't play our best ball. But Delaware State is a good football team. That dog on number one, man, he's an explosive big back, that's for sure.
South Carolina State traveled up to Howard last week for a big game. If Howard won, it would create a jumble atop the MEAC leaderboard. Let's go straight to the second quarter. Time is winding down before half. That Wi-Fi connection between Eric Phoenix and Ianaj Carter continues to be strong. 63-yard toss and catch between those two for a touchdown that puts South Carolina State up 13-7. But how about a game-breaking play right before the half? Howard, trying to drive, Gerard Washington says, "I'll take that." A pick six puts the Bulldogs up 21-7 going into halftime. They cruise to a 38-14 win to stay unbeaten in MEAC play. Howard falls to 1-2 in conference play.
You know, it always starts with the big guys up front. And we played multiple guys up front, and I thought they did a really good job of stopping the run. And our secondary linebackers, man, they did a great job on the second and third level.
4 turnovers and a couple different sacks and situations like that. We knew going into the game we were going to have to try to control that defensive front, and did some things early to kind of help neutralize that. But, you know, you can't overcome, you know, that many turnovers and giving those guys that many possessions again.
It's time for our MEAC Players of the Week presented by Coca-Cola. Your offensive player of the week is none other than Ianaj Carter after that big-time performance in the nation's capital. 4 catches, 120 yards, and that 63-yard touchdown connection earns him the weekly honor.
His Bulldogs teammate Quantre Harry has been named MEAC Defensive Player of the Week. 2 interceptions and 6 tackles for Harry last week in the win over Howard. He was everywhere. For the second straight week, Morgan State kicker Sar Bundima is the Rookie of the Week. He hit all 3 of his field goal attempts.
South Carolina State's Trey Franklin is Offensive Lineman of the Week after an 88% blocking grade and 3 pancake blocks. Bulldogs punter Dyson Roberts is Specialist of the Week after a nearly 50-yard punting average in the game last week against Howard, helping the Bulldogs win the always important field position battle.
Yeah, some outstanding play from all these guys in the conference. When we come back, we'll bring in Emery Hunt to break down last night's Howard versus North Carolina Central game. A lot on the line for these teams,
That's
of
right.
course, for seeding purposes. Stick around, Countdown to Kickoff continues after this quick timeout.
Welcome back into MEAC Countdown to Kickoff presented by Coca-Cola. Before we get into today's doubleheaders and talk about those games, let's take a look back at last night's Friday night showdown between North Carolina Central and Howard.
And now would be a good time to bring in our Emery Hunt, who had a close eye on this one. Emery, what were your takeaways from this matchup?
You got to give credit to North Carolina Central for what they were able to do against Howard. They started off rather slow, rather sluggish. Howard's special teams did a great job of keeping their team in this ball game, blocking 2 kicks, but the offense of Howard couldn't find success consistently against this North Carolina Central Eagles defense, and that was a big thing in this game, big turning point. Then you start to see Jamari Taylor really turn it on, over 200 yards rushing on the ground, did a great job being one of the leading receivers of that football team. So he was doing it well on both ends of offense, and when you have a guy like that that's able to do damage as a runner and also as a receiver, it makes you that tougher to defend, that hard to beat, and we saw that play out on Friday night down in Durham, North Carolina.
All right, Emery, always appreciate you. We'll talk with you coming up later inside the show some more. Big result there, of course, all those teams right there chasing South Carolina State. So it figures that we'll have to come to the final week of the season once again, but that's how it always goes.
And it's exciting that way.
Let's keep it that way. Let's take a look at game 1 of 2 on the schedule for today. Delaware State coming down here to face Norfolk State today at Dick Price Stadium in this one.
Yeah, and it's been a tough season for these two squads. Delaware State into this game, coming into it on an 8-game losing skid. Norfolk State is just 3-7 on the season, so their last 2 games each will be about finding the players that they can build around next season. Delaware State's been putting up points too, 28 last week. They got blanked at Howard, but put up 35 the week before. So against South Carolina State, they did something. They just haven't been able to get enough stops. Norfolk State was off last week. The question in this one is, who can win the turnover battle? It's been a problem for both offenses this season. Let's check in with Coach Odoms and Coach Hull from earlier in the week during their conference call.
Well, the biggest thing is we got to play for 60 minutes in all 3 phases. When you look at the games that we've dropped, we've had bad play here or there that allow team momentum, and just addressing that in the bye week is just understanding that we're a good football team. We just got to play well in all 3 phases.
It's going to be a 60-minute game. You know, they're capable of scoring points on offense. You know, their quarterback, you know, kind of makes them go. They got good running backs, got some big tight ends. So, you know, and a big offensive line. So, you know, we got to contain them on that. And then defensively, they run around, they fly around, and they hit. You know, they're big up front. You know, so it's going to be another physical game.
All right, when we come back, let's take a look at today's finale. South Carolina State, Morgan State, 4 p.m. kick. The implications in this game, huge. There's no other way to say it, so stick around. Countdown to Kickoff continues after this word from our sponsors.
Welcome back to MEAC Countdown to Kickoff. We're winding down this season after today's doubleheader. Mitch, there's literally 3 games left to be played in the 2024 MEAC season.
Yeah, that fact actually makes me sad.
It's okay.
Only one team will be left standing and advancing to postseason play after 4 p.m. next Saturday. So let's take a look at our final game of the day. South Carolina State, Morgan State up in Baltimore. Hey, look, this game right here, pretty much the only thing standing between South Carolina State and Atlanta. But if Morgan State wins, oh boy, we got some math equations to solve next week, and so keep the calculator on deck. Tell us what it means, though.
Yeah, a win for South Carolina State, and they'll be on their way to the Celebration Bowl because they hold the tiebreaker over North Carolina Central and Morgan State. But a Morgan State win means there will be some sorting out to do if both teams were to win next week.
South Carolina State's offense has been on fire. They've taken home multiple Offensive Player of the Week honors, as you've heard. Of course, the latest being Ianaj Carter this week. Will Eric Phoenix be able to throw the ball all over this Morgan State defense that has been the best in the conference this season statistically? They're only allowing 20 points per game. That's the conference best as well. But if this game is played in the 20s, Jazz, it bodes well for the Bears. We know how that goes. They don't want to be in a rock fight if you're South Carolina State. They've been able to put up 69 points in conference play. We saw that against Delaware State. But we've also seen Morgan State move the ball and find the end zone a lot more frequently here towards the final stretch of the season. Coach Damon Wilson knows they'll have to slow down this Bulldogs offense to have a chance. Coach Berry believes his group can go and impose their will once again and pull off the unthinkable here in year one of his tenure as head ball coach.
And this is another opponent we have to go play that are going to be sound, and they're going to be well coached, and they're going to be physical. You know, when you look at film, you want to see, you know, when you watch film and see a team that's physical. Morgan State University is a physical football team and a well-coached football team.
We're playing against South Carolina State team that I think's won 6 or 7 games in a row. Coach Berry, championship coach from Benedict, guy I've known over the years, a great guy, great coach, and he's gonna have his guys ready. So it's not a whole lot of prep talk or that I have to give these guys. They understand the challenge ahead.
And when we come back, we take a look around the MEAC and our other fall sports, and of course, basketball is in action, so the update on the hardwood as well. MEAC Countdown to Kickoff, presented by Coca-Cola, continues in just a few minutes. Welcome back into MEAC Countdown to Kickoff. So with the race to the Celebration Bowl hitting the final stretch, we bring in Emery Hunt once more to talk about the coaches who are in the running and their ties to the HBCU National Championship.
Listen, when we talk about Conference of Champions and coaching and putting the two together, the MEAC has it all. When you think about the coaching lineage that we're seeing currently within the conference, started at Morgan State with Damon Wilson. When he was at Bowie State, he won conference championships, got them to the postseason. You look at Larry Scott and what he has done at Howard already, gotten those guys to the Celebration Bowl, having tremendous success. Trey Oliver at North Carolina Central got those guys to the Celebration Bowl, winning MEAC titles. Dawson Odoms, when he was at Southern, he was leading those guys to SWAC West titles, so that was unprecedented there. So you think about the coaches that we're seeing, the new coaches in Chennis Berry, and what he did at Benedict, winning conference titles, getting his team to the Division II postseason. And so Lee Hall, when he was back in his first iteration of coaching in the MEAC at Morgan State, getting those guys to a MEAC championship. So everywhere you look around this conference, you're seeing quality coaches, championship coaches. So that's why we're seeing what we're seeing out there on the field. These teams are always competitive. They're super competitive. There's guys that are getting developed to go play off into the pro ball, the pro game, So you're getting great coaching, championship caliber coaching, which is why we're seeing what we're seeing this season and beyond here in the MEAC.
Always appreciate you, Emery. We'll check back in with you next week as we wrap things up for the regular season.
Yes, we will. And while we're still a couple weeks away from the HBCU National Championship between the MEAC and SWAC, let's take a look at some conference champions being crowned in other MEAC sports. Volleyball's regular season wrapped up, and Howard has won their regular season championship and secured first place in next week's tournament.
Yeah, the Bison will play the 8 seed in the tournament, which begins next Friday, the 22nd at 11:30 a.m. at Memorial Hall on the campus of Delaware State University. Coppin State will be the 2 seed, Delaware State the 3, and Norfolk State will round out the top 4 in the bracket.
And 4 matches on Friday, 2 on Saturday, and the champion is crowned on Sunday at 8:30 p.m. You'll be able to catch the semifinals matchups live right here on ESPN+. On the other hardwood, hoops is in full swing of non-conference play, and the MEAC is making some noise, Mitch.
Yeah, absolutely. On the MEAC, on the women's side, Norfolk State got their first win over an SEC program when they upset Missouri on the road. And, you know, they got paid to upset an SEC team, so we love to see that. The Spartans are off to a 3-0 start this season. They've got a couple of games as well coming up here, but great starts by Coppin State and Howard as well. Non-conference play will continue through the rest of the year before we get into MEAC play in January and February. But, of course, on the men's side, some good things happening as well.
Yeah, on the men's side, Norfolk State is out to a great start with a couple of early wins to get off to a 3-1 start. South Carolina State looks good. They were competitive on the road against the University of South Carolina. A lot of ball to be played, though, as a lot of our MEAC schools hit the road against Power 4 conference teams. Of course, you can stay up to date on everything basketball, volleyball, and all sports at MEACsports.com.
Cannot wait. I guess the race towards the Norfolk Scope and MEAC basketball tournament begins as well now.
Yeah.
So we'll start that countdown clock as well. Speaking of clock, when we come back, we're finishing the show up with predictions and, of course, a look ahead to the Celebration Bowl. Countdown to Kickoff here on the MEAC Digital Network wraps up after this quick break.
Wow, a lot of implications, a lot of things happening. But that's why I love the MEAC, because any given Saturday, it's always exciting. And what I'm excited for is now for the best part of the show. I think it's our announcer picks. First game up, Delaware State, Norfolk State. Mitch, who do you got?
Norfolk State at home, closing out the season here. I'm taking Norfolk State in this one. Delaware State has been impressive in some of these games that they've lost during this 8-game skid, but Norfolk State, I don't want to say that this is a team that, has gotten the short end of the stick mostly this season, but they have. They've been in these games, just been some one-possession games that they've lost and been on the wrong side of. So I'm taking Norfolk State in this one to kind of close out this home stretch. On a strong note, Delaware State will keep it close, but I think Norfolk State pulls away in the third and fourth quarter in this game. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm going to say Norfolk State as well, the previous HBCU and the FCS National Team of the Week. That back and forth overtime thriller with Morgan State. They're ready to go into this week against a team, Delaware State, that's, on that losing skid, but also we got to talk about those 4 fumble recoveries. I think that defense is giving them so much energy, so I got the Spartans on this one.
All right, Morgan State, South Carolina State. This is a game right here that is really for all the marbles. You think about it, next week's results are going to matter either way, regardless. But with that being said, South Carolina State comes into this game with the offense rolling. Morgan State comes into this game with the defense being dominant. I'm going to start us off here. I'm going to take South Carolina State. I know I've looked like a South Carolina State homer or something the past couple of weeks, but I have been right every time I pick South Carolina State, so I'm going to stick with them this week. I think that aerial attack that they have and Coach Barry has been able to implement with that offense has just been phenomenal. Eric Phoenix has been one of the best players in the conference this season and country in FCS football. Ian Oz Carter is a receiver that can create separation every single time. I think they have enough to get it done this week against a Morgan State defense that has been the best in the conference from start to finish. But I think they win this game in a close one.
Yeah, I'm going with South Carolina State too. I mean, they put up a good fight. They won against the MEAC defending champs Howard. Then previously in that week, they played Central. So a team that we were looking at that could be up there right with them. So this is a team that has played some of the best in the conference, and they're looking really good defensively. They had 6 sacks and 4 interceptions last game. And then we bring in the offense. You already hit on it, Eric Phoenix. He's only thrown 1 interception in conference play. I'm going to knock on some wood so I don't jinx him. But this is a team that's really been pulled together. And for Coach's first year with these guys, phenomenal. Yeah. Phenomenal job.
Absolutely. And you got to give a shout out because it's a HBCU to HBCU pipeline. Yes. Coach Barry brought some of those players from that national championship team at Benedict College up to the D1 FCS level. So just shows you if you can hoop, you can hoop. It doesn't matter what level it is for sure. So that game coming up at 4 p.m. right here on ESPN+. But with that being said, enjoy the slate of football, folks. Get your popcorn popped. We will see you same time right here next week. Of course, shout out to everybody behind the scenes that makes this show happen here at the MEAC. And of course, shout out to Grand Furniture for keeping us comfy here as we sit on set. Folks, we'll see you same time next week. Take care.